So we thought that we would ask you if we could start with shots, but I don't think that's happening because you're already in your coffee.
The last time we had shots must have been
some time ago. Coffee shop it is.
Are you gonna take shots in mugs? Oh wow, you guys are courageous.
3, 2, 1, and action.
Hi, I'm Venky,
Hi, my name is Ariane.
and this is our story.
This is the deadly one that I have.
It has whiskey and it has hot water, so it's a shot.
Okay, so welcome to the Sikrit Show. We are so happy that we are finally doing this. I think when was it when we spoke for the first time? Was it in April?
No. It was...
No, I think something like that. Yeah, in April.
We've been also just like grappling with so many things. Kriti's yoga work has just picked up pace, and we were traveling, and I was traveling for work. So just so much has happened. So what's been up with you guys, in the last 2 months?
Yeah, same for us somehow, right? We were traveling, then we had my family over, like on different weekends. I was traveling alone with my friends, so always something up. Like these, today is a holiday here, and so this is like a longer extended weekend. So this is the first time we're just at home and not doing anything, and it just gets a bit calm.
Then I think it was your birthday, so then we were having a birthday party first week of May. Her birthday.
Wow. Ariane, when's your birthday?
On the 5th of May.
What?
He's the fifth.
You should give us a high five.
Yay, best birthday ever.
Happy birthday, Ariane.
Happy birthday to you too, man. Then I think 1st of June is when our daughter turned 3, so again we had a nice celebration.
Yes, big party.
It was nice.
And on Tuesday, I had invited all of my colleagues, like 13, 14 people, and he made rajma for all of them.
So I see that Venky is our in-house chef.
Master chef.
Chef, I don't know, but I definitely cook.
Mhm.
The thing is, I think I always been I've been a foodie all my life and also fascinated by cooking. So even growing up, I would always hang around the kitchen helping mom or just watching what she's doing and all that. And here, I was like, no, I will not have bread and cheese as dinner every evening.
Very interesting because
Yeah.
in one of our segments we want to get into the Indian food experience.
All the food that she enjoys to pan and pani puri, because those are the ones which are most debatable content for most of the Westerners.
Yeah.
Because they're like, pani puri it's both crunchy but also wet and soggy. It's spicy but also sweet. It's like dry but also like very watery and whatnot. I think it crashes the German brain.
I think so too. In Germany, food is very one-dimensional.
So I see you have 2 pillows behind you. So we were thinking of starting a game.
Oh.
This is called the pillow smasher.
It's called the Pillow Smasher. So you should have one pillow each on your laps. Ariane, why don't you also have a pillow?
And maybe your glasses off.
Yeah.
My glass is off, okay?
Then we know who will win. Then,
I'm
guys,
super blind.
I don't want to fight a handicapped person. Come on.
Are you here?
Okay, so the game is simple. We're going to ask you a question. So for example, who wakes up early? Who's the first one to wake up? And so whosoever is the person for that answer, you smash that face.
Okay, so let's do a warm-up round. Who takes the longest in the shower? Yes.
Yeah.
Who is the wildest while shopping?
No, actually, no. Yeah, no, I was. Yeah.
Who's the lazy one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Who eats the most amount of food
What
on
do
a
you
day?
think?
Who works the longest hours?
Who's Tara's favorite? Oh, I thought both of you were going to hit yourself.
Right now, toddler age, full on mommy. I am hoping that it turns to the dads and daughters cliche,
Sure.
but that has not kicked in
Yeah.
yet. That has not kicked in.
Who asks for the most amount of vacations?
In Germany, you automatically get the vacation.
Okay, so we should start. Now that is how it looks. So we will now get into
Yeah.
it.
Go for it. I thought we started.
No, we were warming up, right?
Okay.
You said it's a warm up. Okay.
I think we're very
Let's start
aligned.
again.
Now, Sid is like, oh my god, I need to think about 5 more questions.
Yeah, shit, I gave up all of my questions in this warm-up itself.
Okay, question 1. Who cooks better? Who loves to party till late?
Who, who has the most amount of water in a day?
Who is the chai person between the two of you?
Who can walk the longest? Great stuff. This was a good sort of opener. We wanted to switch up the way introductions are done in shows like this, and we've always heard people introduce themselves as individuals, but I've never really heard how a couple would introduce themselves. So, how would you introduce yourself as a couple?
The way at least we would introduce ourselves, like we as a couple are people who value the companionship and support that we have for each other, but at the same time also recognize and give space for individual growth as well as individuality. And then together we see each other as partners to 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 kind of solve a lot of life problems, which can be as small as grocery shopping and cooking, or as big as financials, buying a house, or taking care of parents and whatnot. And I think that's what we really see, or at least that's what at least I feel as the crux of what defines us.
And companionship and fun in life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful.
We were also discussing, we were doing a trial of this answer ourselves. And in so many ways, what you spoke, was resonating because it's this divergence and convergence, the divergence of the individuality and the convergence of us as a couple to make that space for us to thrive in this life. So, yeah, I totally relate with you over here.
At least in your 20s, like when I was growing up in India, I always had this idea, oh yeah, like your partner should have all this checklist. And I think for a lot of people, or at least the way I think, they are trying to put some of their individual ambitions and individual growth stories, and they expect the partners to be a part of it. And most of the time, the partners should be cheerleaders who are supporting you in that journey, but you need to walk that journey. So when you're saying like, my partner should also enjoy traveling, my partner should also enjoy reading books and dancing, etc., etc. It's a good to have, and that might be a shared hobby. But at the same time, the older you grow, I think you need to invest on your own self as well as your growth and your hobbies, interests, etc. And then the partner becomes the person who is giving you the support as well as someone who is cheering for you, but also someone with whom you can share the successes and the failures of that journey. At least that's how I feel. I don't know if it was different for you in your 20s. Did you have a list or something?
No, I did not have a list. And also, I studied psychology, and where I studied it, it's a science. Like it's not a social science, but it's very statistic driven, very research driven. And I mean, we didn't study like matchmaking or something, but what I wanted to say is like a lot of these research and social psychology, they always tell you that people don't know what they really want. Like if you ask them, if you make a list, they will write down one thing, but then if you look at their next partner, they will choose somebody completely different, for example. So I was very aware that there's a gap between the two, and also I don't know, like I never saw these romantic movies, like these American images. I never really saw this in my surrounding, like how, older couples would be like. And so I never had the image. For me, that was always a movie depiction. And I never said like, oh, this is exactly how I want to fall in love and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I didn't have that list. I just took it how it was delivered to me by life, but I never had the list. That's what I was looking for.
Absolutely. I think like a lot of people think, as Venky was sharing, that they think it's a checklist that needs to be ticked off because you want the person, just how parents, right? A lot of parents we see, they say that, oh, I want my child to become a footballer because I couldn't. Similarly, like I didn't get a chance to be very I don't have a great like public speaking. I'm not an extrovert, but I want a partner who can go out and communicate, have a good rapport with people. So that happens, but I feel a partner is there to bring out the best in you. And now that how that happens is a very interesting thing that I like to notice. How is your partner bringing the best of you out while you are in the journey together, helping you just overcome the challenges, enjoy the journey which you are on, while you're also like pushing the person harder, right? So I think that is something people do miss out on observing when they're in their 20s for sure.
This is how I would try to phrase it, right? Like I think when you start the race, you think it's a 100-meter sprint. which is why every day needs to be a new memory with your partner. Every day needs to be our we need to go for this party and we need to do these activities. And the longer you're in the relationship, you realize it's actually a marathon. And the marathon would require endurance, patience, understanding, etc., etc. That's why you also learn to pace yourself a little bit. So you also realize that, okay, I as a person need to give space to my partner, vice versa. Also, I cannot expect my partner to fill in the holes in my life. So if I am unhappy with my job, if I am unhappy with my, I think, like body or anything of that sort, right? Of course, I would need to work on it, and then the partner is there to support, and your partner is watching your life story, so they are recording your life story, right? But at the same time, sometimes I think it's a little unfair to put the whole pressure on the partner that you need to also feel accountability for my life and how it turns out. And while I say this, I know that like in days and weeks, sometimes it goes up and down. So every once in a while, I would realize that I am crossing my personal boundary and saying, Ariane, why didn't you do this or help me this? And later on, when I would calm down, I'm like, yeah, but I am responsible for my own being. And the fact is that she's my moral support and my co-pilot. But I need to be responsible for my own life journey.
And I think it's enhanced by the German setup, right? Because here in Germany, it's a very individualistic country. So I was raised like this to be self-sufficient, basically, right? To deal with my own life and just be by myself. And of course, like my family loves and supports me, but it's a very high value that you place on the kids to grow up to be independent adults. And in India, you have a completely different context where, you like to be pampered and people love to pamper. And so this was also something where we needed to find like our middle ground somehow.
It's interesting you brought this difference of the German and Indian culture, because we actually wanted to get to this part of when you guys met and you guys fell in love and you took it to the next level. What was this journey like for you? Because this is something, of course, like we both will not be able to empathize or understand how the kind of adjustments you guys made, the kind of conversations you had because of the difference in culture. So, do you want to share more about how that journey was
Sure, I think
for
it's
you?
better maybe. So I think you can empathize because sure, for us it's like the big cultural differences, but I think also in India when people from different regions maybe fall in love, so you would have similar things. Or for me, I come from the north of Germany. If I would have fallen for someone from the south, maybe it would have been the same. Maybe not to that extent, but I think from this point of view, a lot of people can relate. So we met more than 12 years ago, and just like Venky described, I mean, in the beginning we were friends, we were hanging out. I was in India for an internship, and so it was so easy because all these firsts, all of these really nice experiences, they come to you very easily. So we were traveling in India a lot, and I remember the parties we had and stuff like this. So after some time, I needed to go back to Germany, and we thought like, okay, how is this going to work? You had a great job in India. I was still studying in Germany, so we were not sure. But of course, we kept in touch. And then Venky founded a business with a German partner. And so he was traveling between Germany and India. And then we thought, like, okay, we might give it a shot. And I think the longest we have not seen each other was like 4 or 5 months in between. But yeah, even that, it worked, like with a long-term relationship, long distance, sorry.
Yeah.
And from 2014 onwards, you were in Germany, right? Yeah. So the last, oh my God, 9 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and since then we have been living together. And yeah, in the beginning, I would say it was very easy because you keep it casual. You're in a relationship, but maybe you don't need to, clarify everything from a very deep level, let's say. But latest, when you live together, I think then some of these differences are coming out. And like I said, it is sometimes a very subtle thing that I would be astonished. Like, why would he get angry now? I didn't even get it. And I can give an example maybe. In Germany, if let's say I have a dress which is not fitting to me anymore, yeah, and I have a friend and I would tell her, listen, I have this beautiful dress. It's I don't want to throw it away, but maybe you want to have it, So, and something like in that matter, I I asked him, like, would you like to have this? Otherwise, I would throw it. And he was so offended, you know, you want to give something to me, but you know, you want to throw out. But the why I did it, and I didn't do it consciously, is because I don't want him to think that I'm giving him a gift so that he has to respond somehow in return of giving me a gift. That's why I'm saying that, you know, I would anyway throw this otherwise and so on. But it is, you know, it is such a short story now, but I think it took us an hour of explaining and discussing and so on to come to that point where we discovered, okay, this is the misunderstanding, you know, of just intentions. It takes a lot of time and a lot of communication to just smile about it. And of course, there are also issues where we still haven't figured it out, and I don't know if it is cultural, but from an expectation point of view, right, where I have different expectations than he would, and there it's like in any long-term relationship, I think that you need to find compromises.
For me, I also see this almost as phases, right? So I think if you look at most of the cosmopolitan Indian or someone who has had, let's say, like a global outlook, like you guys do, even if you would go into a relationship with a person who is not from India, I think the initial 6 months of that baseline would be the same because as a global citizen, the way you would behave and the value system which is most dear and important to you would be the same as me. And I think for us, it was the same. So when we started dating, none of these cultural aspects really came out. They were just background. Similar to, let's say, in India, the way you say, oh, I am from South India and someone is from North India or something like this. And that becomes, let's say, the phase one, if you want to call it that, and which is where you are just meeting up as individuals. And the handicap sometimes of our backgrounds, or let's say the advantages of our backgrounds, they don't play so much of a part in the relationship. And that's what Ariane, I think, was explaining in the 2010 to 2014 time or something like this. And then once you move in together, and especially if you are moving in a different culture. So as long as it was in India, for me, it did not take a lot of effort, or I was not consciously thinking about how Ariane's experience is different from mine. And then when I came to Germany, then suddenly you have, first of all, the cultural dimension even more strongly playing out. And then you move in together. So we moved in together, and that's when the second layer comes in, which is your behavioral habits, which are put into you from your parents, your own personal preferences, etc. So how clean do you want to keep the apartment? How important it is that you sit together and have warm meals together. Do you guys cook together or alone? Do you go for grocery shopping, etc., together or alone? Do you watch movie, and is that the idea of quality time, or is it sitting and reading a book or playing a board game or playing some music or something like this? So that becomes, let's say, like phase two, where you are kind of understanding each other's cultural, let's say, living habits because of the living aspect. And I think in India, for a lot of couples, that comes after marriage, and it coincides with phase three, I can call it, which is, let's say, when your families are coming together. So once you start dating and you're living together, of course, you start meeting up with the German family, and she was meeting up with my family. And there again, you start learning a little bit of nuance about, okay, what are my behavioral aspects and what are some of my customary aspects that I need to be conscious of. In Germany, because as Ariane said, it is still more, I think, individualistic, you don't really need to put a lot of additional layers before you're meeting up with, let's say, a mom or dad or brother, so on and so forth. So you can just go as your individual, and then they will just see it. Like, there are no additional customary practices that you need to remember, like, oh my God, I'm meeting up with the father-in-law, I need to be a little respectful. Like, you just meet up as a person you would meet up in a party or a house gathering or something like this. But nevertheless, you also realize that Ariane would have a combination of, let's say, Indian exposure, etc., right? But then the moment you're meeting with a German family, for them, they will be peak German. So when I did say that, what I mean is, if I am not coming on time, or if I am not planned, or if I am not thoughtful when they are arriving by already, let's say, getting the things that we need to do for a trip or whatever, those things would be way more offensive for them than me not touching their feet or something like this, right? Because in India, it would be a different context. And I think in India, it's slightly different, where two families get married and it's not two individuals. So there, even if you have your in-laws, they would almost expect you to treat them almost like your parents, and including all the cultural obligations. So that's what is phase three. But I would think in India, phase two and phase three come together for a lot of couples because they move in together only after they get married. And they need to also first deal with each other's individual habits, plus the whole family dimension.
How stressful. I'm happy that we were doing
Phasing it out. And then comes the fourth one, which I think is with the kids. And again, from a cultural angle, right? Because a lot of things that you discuss as a couple when you are in your 20s are hardly about things which are so deep in your childhood. So, let's say for you as a person in your household, if food was given the most importance, if your kid is not eating the kind of or amount of food that you usually used to eat, you will start worrying that, oh my God, my kid is not eating. And if, on the other hand, let's say for Aryane's family, as long as the kid tells that they are hungry and they get something to eat, it's fine. That's the food habit. So for me, for example, every time I see her not eating her khichdi or her vegetables, or let's say trying dal or some new food, etc., for me, I'm a little anxious and a little frustrated, etc., etc. And for her, she's like, she will tell us if she wants to eat this, etc.
If she's hungry, she will eat.
So that's one. Then the other aspect is, for example, action and consequence. So, for example, in India, at least a lot of times, because kids grow up with a lot of, let's say, family, etc., they're like, "Arey nahi beta, it's okay, chalta hai, let's do this."
Can I just jump in here? I remember how I asked him, how was it in your childhood? Like, what kind of chores did you have?
Like household activities.
Household things you needed to do, you know? And I was like, you know, I was responsible for this as a kid, you know? And he was like, I think my mom sent me over to the neighbor once to get some sugar. I'm like, it's not a chore, you know?
Yeah, because I think the way I think and that aspect I find very interesting, and maybe a lot of Indian parents do it too. At least that was not part of my experience. I think a lot of German parents, not all, but a lot of them, they say we need to kind of raise our kids so that they become independent already by 18. As in, and they don't confuse their responsibility as parents with their love as parents. Because otherwise, what we sometimes do is we overcompensate our love, but in the process, we take away the responsibility that a kid should have. So it is super important um, that if Tara is playing with some toys, etc., in her house or in her room, she's also responsible for cleaning it up. But also, we bring her in for the household activities. How many times have we tried to come to mom or dad, and they're like, "No, no, beta, you don't worry about it. I will take care of it." But what you learn later on is actually kids enjoy doing what their parents are doing. So now, for example, I will bring my daughter Tara to the kitchen, and then she's helping me. Let's say when we were making rajma or something like this, she would put some salt, etc., etc. And I realized that's actually a very cool thing. And that's something you never discuss during the honeymoon 6 month period of phase one or even phase two or phase three. And I know that later on, as we will grow older, we will also see more responsibilities in terms of when our parents are getting sick or when we need to do responsibilities towards some of our relatives on the German side. And I think that's how we see that evolution. And that's how the culture dimension keeps coming up more and more. And unless you communicate strongly, that can create a lot of friction or a lot of complications.
We also got together. We almost were living in from the time we
Yeah.
first met, right? And our only time when we were away was for like 6 months during COVID, but we figured a way to move back in a new city, and then we were together. My idea always was that I am going to be the one who is holding the kitchen's fort, right? And naturally, it became my territory than more than hers,
Yeah.
right? Similarly, when it came to just like the household management part, I felt this was something that was my strong suit. I just felt the need to take care of the space I live
Yeah.
in, right? And it has nothing to do with culture, but just this innate need to do things differently as a man and experience what that means, as a man was
Yeah.
a lot of my choices in this relationship stemmed from that mindset.
That.
Yeah.
No, I think one of the aspects that I think we found out earlier, I think we really enjoyed working with each other, right? So as a team, if you want to call it that. And does it go smoothly all the time? Of course not. And we've not painted or Instagram it in terms of a rosy picture. But what is fun is to see, let's say, breaking down, let's say, the complexities of a household as a team, similar to the way you would break down the complexities of work, etc. So for us, like you said, it breaks down to what you enjoy, but still see what are some of the other leftover things that have to be done because someone needs to do it, right? And now, of course, when you sometimes benefit from a patriarchal society, you can raise your hands and I'm also saying, even when you're raising your kid, even in Germany, the default response is, so where is the mama, right? And that's where you then say, no, actually, this we still are part of the same team, and this is the problem statement that has been put in front of us.
Yeah.
That's why we often would say, okay, cooking is something I enjoy. I will do it. You are able to clean or look at the cleaning aspect way better than me, so you look after that. Groceries, I do it. Ironing of clothes, etc., you do. So
When you said that working as a team, so you enjoy being a team, right? You enjoy this team of just the two of you, three of you. I think a lot of times I've noticed people not looking at it as a team and seeing that, okay, this is your job, this is my job, and you do yours, I do mine, and then we come together for a nice, rosy evening. But we have different responsibilities, right? But imagine the same thing, the other person also being invested in just knowing how you're feeling about that task, and do you even want to do it today? Maybe not. Okay, I'll take it up. We have to get done with it. But that conversation and that feeling that we are in it together, I think that is what has really helped us navigate through a lot of these situations, especially just moving in with my in-laws. And it was very new. I think before marriage, I told him that, listen, we are not doing that for the next 7-8 years because I need time to know them. They need time to know me. So only vacation time is good.
And 6 months into our marriage, we are living with my parents.
Yeah. And that is because, and that's because both of us had like a deep discussion. We had we had this huge stick-on activity that we did, the pros and cons of everything that's going to happen, how my life will change, how his life will change. But just the idea of being in it together felt like a challenge, and I would love to solve any challenge being in this team, right? So that feeling, I think, just made me want to do it. And you can share what you felt about it.
I mean, what Venky had mentioned much earlier around the role of a partner is that of a companion to support you in the journey rather than always be involved and like doing half the bit. You were mentioning something around those lines, and ever since Kriti has started her work around the yoga bit, and we have also started the work on this podcast. We have had these moments where individually we are just so confused as to what has to be done, how to proceed ahead. We don't have ideas what to do. So initially I remember there was this expectation that why aren't you coming up with ideas, or why aren't you helping me out with this? But I think we've had those conversations and we've realized that suppose your yoga, this is your work. I can come, I can critique it, I can give you suggestion, but I cannot own it the way you own it, right? And similarly, this podcast is our project, but this was something that I sort of initiated, right? So a lot of the legwork in this, it has to be my work. And if I'm like losing my mind, I'm gonna, cut off from this, take her out, for a coffee, just relax and then get back to it because this is my work. No one else can do it but me. Ariane, what's your thought on this aspect of the gender roles between a man and a woman as parents, as partners?
So I have to say that until mid-20s, I never really much reflected on it because we are supposedly an equal society in Germany. So you never really feel the discrimination or whatever you want to call it. I never had the feeling, I can't do this because I'm a woman. Now, when I look back on it, there were subtle things. Also in Germany, you don't like to go out in the dark alone as a woman or something like that. Yeah, you would avoid certain parts of the city or maybe, just have a look around. So even that is something where I think, okay, I wasn't really aware that this is a difference. And I would love this to change also for Thailand in the future. Anyway, I started my studies. Everything was great. I started work. Everything was great. And then you come to that age, like of the end of 20s, where people almost expect that you will be gone for a couple of years because you will have a child and all. It was very subtle, so nobody here would tell it in your face that you can't do this because you're female. But more and more of these stories were coming up from my friends and all. I think I'm a very confident person. And I don't have really fine antenna, which can also be helpful because then I will not notice the subtle discriminations. But when I definitely felt it was when I was pregnant, because all of my career ambitions and all were then questioned, yeah, by my boss, by my super boss, and so on. Even though I said I will be back soon, and so on. Now, why do I tell this? Because I think you do conscious choices of who is your employer and how do you want to be supported also at home. And I saw this especially the last couple of years where I felt even for my girlfriends, I was surprised how the kids coming in changed a lot to traditional roles setups. So in the end, most of them are working part time, or they are the ones who are on parental leave for a longer time. The dads maybe just for a month or so. And I think we found for us the right way. I'm not saying it needs to be, there's not one way, right? If the woman wants to stay home and the dad just wants to go to work, that's completely fine. But oftentimes I found people are not even having these discussions, but they go to these standard things of, oh no, the guy can't do it at work because it would be looked upon like badly. You know, it would be harmful for his career. And I'm thinking, what about her career? Or just these discussions of, but it's more natural for the mother, where I'm, I'm getting a bit aggressive when I hear these things. So for us, it was a discussion of how we want to handle it and how do we split the parental leave time and what is okay for us in terms of having another person coming in as a babysitter or giving her to a kindergarten or a crash at what age. And we really make these conscious decisions, and that's really important for me. So I can't stress that enough. Like, really have a look on who you're choosing as a partner, because oftentimes I have the feeling that women didn't even discuss this at all with their partners beforehand, and then they are surprised that they're in this really traditional role setup. And once you're in it, it's so hard to get out of it, because then already, you're not earning so much, so it's better if the man then keeps on earning, and so on and so forth. Whew, look at the statistics. I can just say, like, from there, it's a downhill battle, because it goes downhill because retirement, for example, here in Germany, you have retirement schemes, and for men they're almost double as high as for women, because in the past women mostly had to stay home with the kids, and so they didn't pay into that scheme as much as the man did. And now I think we're in a time where we can split the care work more equally. So we should do it, or you should think about compensation, because it's not very sexy to talk about finance in a relationship, but in the end, it is really something which will impact you a lot. And I feel very passionate that people make conscious decisions about these things and not just take it as it comes and they fall into the traditional things because they have never seen it any differently.
Yeah. I think so. One thing that both of you have continuously shared in bits is about communication and how important communication is to, just like work around all these things together, because definitely we all come from very different culture. It does, even in India. I mean, what he has experienced growing up in Calcutta versus what I have with my parents is very different. But yeah, conversations can really bring you to a common point. It could look very different from what both of us wanted individually, but it could be just a third point where you want to reach together, right? So that's a good takeaway, I feel, for me.
We another like cultural difference between us was, I come from a family where we don't really talk a lot, and we fight like once a year. Maybe I think the most amount of fights must have happened because of me during my teenage, because I was such a difficult child. But
And we talk about everything, every feeling, every emotion. I felt bad. I don't mind screaming at my mom, or she screaming at me going and telling my dad that you shouldn't have done this. And then both of us during dinner, like having a loud conversation. And then after that, we are good. The next morning, it's all over. We discussed about it, we've forgotten, and we're done.
so in our dating phase, of course, not many of such arguments happened, but there was a sudden spike after marriage, and I was just blown away. I'm like, what has happened to her in a matter of a week? Where suddenly, like, a different side of her is coming, and I'm seeing, like, she is bringing up things which it was not making sense. And in the beginning, I was like, okay, sure, I'll figure this out. And then I had this phase where I was like, I'm going to give it back to you. And I was also like retaliating. And I think it's after a year now I've realized that, okay, conversation is important for her. as much as listening it out is important for me. So I'm gonna stick to my traits of being a good listener, and I'm gonna let her do her thing of letting it all out. And then maybe if one day I'm gonna blast, I'm gonna blast. We'll see where it comes.
No, but genuinely believe that when I am sharing something with him, I I like to share. Now I've started telling him that right now, just listen to me, don't give me logic, or give me logic and don't be too emotional, because there are times where I'm super emotional about something and I'm sharing my heart out, and he's like, you know what, step one, step two, step three, step one. I'm like, oh my god, your steps, right? Um, and then I realized it's
Phase
very
one, phase two, phase
yeah.
three.
Now you see how it is for us as well.
Yeah.
So then
Sounds very true.
and this is something I had to do it myself. Like then I think the last chat I was like, okay, so today I want to share something, no logic, just listen, right? It helped because
Yeah.
he didn't give me any logic
These
after that.
disclaimers, right? They help. So, yeah, we had to smile a lot while you were talking because it's like the same for us. We
Yeah.
have very different communication patterns, which we bring in from our families. My family is very down to earth. You talk about like what happened at school, what happened at work, what will happen tomorrow, what we still need to buy. Like these are really the topic range. And for his family, they would talk like for me, like up in the clouds and what would be the 3 factors for a successful life, you know? And I'm like, what? Why are we discussing things like this? Very hard for me. Or food. I had no idea that you can talk so much about food. For us, it's like,
Yeah.
we are making this.
Welcome.
It tastes good. These were the 2 topics or not. So yeah, for us, it's exactly the same thing. And we also work with these disclaimers that sometimes I'm like, I just want to complain. I don't want a solution from you right now. I just want to complain. Okay. And then it's fine for me again. Yeah. Or you do
Yeah.
the same.
And I think if you look at like why therapy is such a like a strong concept, right? It's because of 2 components. One, someone lets you just speak and speak. Someone is just listening and letting you speak. And the second thing is afterwards they are giving you clarity of thought. But they don't jump in the beginning with, this is the clarity of thought, now speak. And I think when you're talking about communication, it's exactly the same. So in the beginning, you let the other person. So a lot of times when we are, let's say, having a disagreement or we are really missed or upset with each other, at least for me, I notice just when I'm speaking about how I felt, already takes away 90% of my anger or frustration or sadness or whatever. And then the 10% is actually the easy part of, okay, and then later on we will structure it like this, or because I'm a very, let's say, for me, less structure, logic, etc., come very naturally. Also, at least the way I like to receive advice in a conversation is also the way I try to do it with conversations, which of course I now, as I'm getting older, I'm learning it's not the same for everyone else. Empathy actually is about being whatever the other person wants you to be, either a listener or a problem solver. But you cannot trust your form to everyone else. That is something that I am learning now.
I was told this one statement once that uh, everyone has the innate ability to solve their problems. They don't need you. And this was it. Like what you said right now, that you don't have to be the problem solver every time unless asked
Yeah.
for it. People know how to do it. You just have to workshop it, facilitate, take them towards that. I learned it. Yeah, I totally relate with you here.
I remember in our previous chat, one thing that you had shared was how you want to talk about the more practical side of a relationship, and the romantic side, of course, is there. We know all the rosy parts of relationship, especially in the initial years. But then coming to the practical side of things, it looks different, right? And it is work. It's continuous work that we have to do with each other. So, do you want to get to the question?
I was wondering, before getting to this beautifully serious part, how about we play a game of rapid fire?
Ooh, let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
Yeah. So we have 2 segments. One rapid fire is specifically for Ariane, facilitated by me, and the second rapid fire is specifically for Venky, facilitated by Dear Kriti.
Cool.
And this is, call it a commercial break in the show.
See?
So Ariane, are you ready?
I am. I'm at the edge of my seat.
Very simple questions. Okay, don't take too much stress. Let's start with a simple one. What's your favorite Indian dish?
Ooh, I think it's cabbage curry. I love to eat it.
Oh wow, we had that for lunch today.
Yes,
Wow.
please. You should.
My mom would love you for this.
Yeah.
What is the best thing about Indian in-laws?
Ooh, the warmth, definitely.
If you and Venky were married in a parallel universe where you will be together, as Venky mentioned, what would you want different about him?
Oh, what would I want different? Less anger?
Oh, interesting. Just note it down. We have to get to this part.
Yeah.
What's your love language?
Well, this would be the services. Oh, how do you act of services? Yeah, that's the one. So I would show my love like this, and also I would expect it. And if it's not there, then my anger is coming up.
In what ways do you think you have changed or evolved in the last 12 years, ever since you met Venky?
I think I share more. It's a very hard journey, but I learned to share more of my thoughts and my feelings. That's definitely one, and also being more, having more of these fine antenna for the feelings of other people, because of the cultural differences, but also because of our personality differences. I think I'm more fine-tuned that way now.
If you could send a time capsule back 12 years with a note for Venky, what would you
With a
write?
note for him, not for me.
Yeah.
Ooh.
For him. But you can write for yourself. Feel free to improve.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we had figured out this acts of services and the love languages differences earlier, that would have been helpful. So I think I would have nudged him a little bit in that way, that if he really wants to, do something for me, the words don't do it; it's the actions.
Beautiful. Okay,
Beautiful.
Ariane, you were good.
The hamper is coming your way.
Yeah, whenever you get your way. Okay, Venky, are you
All
ready?
right, let's give it a shot.
Okay, so first, who does Tara go for fun?
Fine, she goes.
Yeah, much expected. And love mama.
And then for the moment it is distress, safe space, times, or just comfort, it is not.
What is the best gift someone could give you?
Like a gift that inspires me. So it can be a book that opens my mind. It can be a letter that opens my heart. It can be like a cooking class, a dancing class, or a trip, or just a thought that inspires me. So I think that would be it.
Do you prefer surprises or planning things together?
Depends. So I'm a very structured or a very planned person. So, but if it is gifts, then I like the surprises too. But if it is day-to-day life, I would love to plan everything.
If you could relive 1 year of your life, which year would that be?
Rapid fire.
I think 2018, 2019, like the last 3-4 years have been like very, very nice. So, but if you want to say just 1 year, I would still say 2020 because that's when Tara was born. We got in our partner.
Oh, it's so, wow.
As much as it's not the ideal year for most of the world because of COVID and whatnot.
Yeah.
Bonus question for you from my side. If you had to express your love through a dish, what would you make at your kitchen?
Nice.
If it is for Ariane, I know it has to be a cabbage, like South Indian food is let's say the same cabbage curry, but this is not with haldi and lal mirch and garam masala sauce, but this is with let's say coconut, let's say what do you call it? Yeah, the flakes kind, the coconut, the grated coconuts on a cabbage curry with let's say just red chili, full chili and whatnot. But I know that she loves rasam, so if it is to be for her, it would be, let's say, rasam and cabbage curry because I know that she can eat this every day of the week.
I'm getting hungry now when he's talking about it.
Rasam is the best thing ever. I love it too. But do you find it too spicy sometimes? Are you good with the spice and the masala?
I'm good with the spice. I like spicy food. And I think, of course, also there's a certain tolerance. But we always notice when his parents are coming and his mom is cooking that we both look at each other and we're like, oh, it's spicy. Okay, we have become more and more German. So I would say we're somewhere in between. We don't eat as spicy as we would in India, but also for most Germans, it's too spicy.
Yeah, sure.
Super stuff. This was a great round. I think, Venky, you should also agree who the winner is.
Yes, I think it's
I thought Venky did pretty well.
I think Ariana was a riot.
You know, I thought maybe we'll have to let the audience decide when they watch it.
Run a poll. You should run it amongst your friends.
Yeah, who did it better?
I remember this word that you had mentioned,
Yeah.
the phrase, the pragmatic side of love. And it just stuck with me. And I was like, dude, I want us to remain romantic, hopeless romantics for the rest of our lives. But now that Venky has said it, will it change?
Let's not burst that bubble.
No, but that was something which really stuck to both of us because we've have seen the romantic side of relationships, heard a lot about it, heard stories about it, but no one really wants to talk about the
Yeah.
practical side and the changes that a relationship goes through. So, just anything that you would like to share
I think
around
it has
that?
benefits to talk about it because if you only are stuck on the romantic side, you will get disappointed at some point of time. Because as we were speaking before, like in phase one and phase two and so on, there are a lot of firsts, there's a lot of romantic stuff, you know. But even if you take a long walk at the beach every day, and if you have a candlelight dinner every day, you will get bored with it at some point of time, and then it becomes a pragmatic thing, and then you have to think about what else is it that holds us together, and that is somehow fun, or we give each other joy, or at least we battle this together better than alone, right? And this is why we talk about this pragmatic side of it, because this is the essence, what it comes down to. If you are together for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years and so on, at least that's what we have experienced. And it does not mean that it is less worthy of consideration, or you know, it's worse than the other sides of the relationship. In the end, it is, I think, good to talk about it, and it doesn't mean to somehow glorify one aspect about the relationship or the other, right?
Indeed, I would say so. I think it is like the hopeless romantic, right? Like if it just comes as your inherent your behavior, and you don't need someone else's validation for you to still always feel like it, then it is no problem. But invariably, the way the relationships work is, if I'm a hopeless romantic, for me to complete that story, I need Ariane to validate that hopeless romantic action, right? If I'm getting a flowers, or if I'm just making a spontaneous trip to London or something like this, I want her to show that excitement or get spooned by it, because that, and I feel whenever you put it that way, it's not sustainable over a 30 years. So imagine a scenario: you do a surprise party for really every time. Do you think she will always have the same level of excitement? And then every time that excitement that you have thought about in your head is not reciprocated on her face, it will completely turn from that positive reason why you wanted to do it to anger and resentment for her for why she did not respond to it the way you want. Every time expecting every day to be a number 10 on romance is setting yourself for failure. Because right now you might have a limited amount of other responsibilities or things that take your bandwidth, which is why you are able to push in a lot of romance there. But over time, there will be other things too. And
that's okay.
And that's okay. And that's why, for example, like you have changed, etc., etc. But that is the part about life. Like, I think experiences wash through us and change us from A to B. And that, I think, is what is the purpose of life.
You know, I have that product development innovation analogy inside of me that uh, you see, like, products always evolve as users evolve. So for me,
Yeah.
her smile is the product. And if I throw a surprise party, it might give
Yeah.
me that smile today, but I know it's not going to give it tomorrow. So I want to just
Yeah.
keep innovating, you know. That's my hopeless
Yes.
romantic side, that what more can I do to get that out? Of course, I don't want it every day. I don't want it every day, but that's the, I would say, the goal, you know, just because that also keeps me on my foot to put that effort, because it's just so much joy to see like her being happy, and it also translates back to me, and I just get a chance to just keep doing like weird new things
And as I
always.
said, like, and again, like when I am answering this, right, like, of course there are outliers, and every relationship and every person is different. What I'm saying is, a lot of our influences are from the popular culture that we consume, and the way, let's say, popular culture is made. If you just saw, let's say, a bland family life on television, it will not make for exciting television, which is why they kind of show more extremes of fights or extremes of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I think for most of the people, they might not have the empathy or that deep level of, let's say, work that needs to be put in, right? Like you mentioned, Sid. And that's why I said that being a little realistic about it helps in the long term. Otherwise, not everyone, I think, is inherently so like hardworking on the topic, like you mentioned.
Exactly. I think that is where the part where people say that, love selflessly comes in. There is a lot of preaching around, give love to your partner and be absolutely selfless. For me, that's impossible. Like, I can't follow it because I am sorry, but
I hope you're still working on that smile tomorrow,
I,
Sid.
I hope you're working on it. Make
Now
sure
it
it's
is
back.
recorded history.
if I am doing something exactly what you said, I would want a response, a reaction as a response, right? And if I don't get that, I will go crazy, right? That I did something and it did not give me a response. But what I'm trying to bring myself to now is that I can't always do things while expecting a reaction or a response, because I don't know what sort of a mindset is he in, how is he taking it. And it keeps me more peace of mind when I don't expect a reaction. It's very difficult working on it every single day, but I think the whole point is it's too much pressure to put on him to react to every action of mine. That's it. Right? So just
I wanted to add that about the pragmatic approach, it's also about an education about how usually relationships evolve. So not just romantic ones, but also other friendships, for example. I think it's the same thing. If you know each other for 20 or years or so, you will know the person inside out. There are not so many surprises anymore. But again and again, the same things are coming up. And then I think it's important to have other strength there in terms of acceptance, for example, is much more needed than for the way the other person is. Because what we noticed is also for us, we understand each other much better than maybe 10 years ago. We just by a glance, we know, okay, this is this issue again. But we also have a few topics which are coming up again and again and again. And that leads to frustration. And of course, you need then this partner in crime, to always say that, okay, like the overall goal is still like to make each other happy and to be like a happy couple and a good team and so on. But yes, there are issues which we cannot solve right now. And I think this education, this knowledge is really important, because I feel that a lot of people, they would have that romantic notion of like, we can solve everything and this is the way it should be and so on. And if they don't find that anymore, they think the relationship is bad and they maybe end it, only then to go for another relationship and maybe find themselves in the same spot like 5 years later because they have similar issues. And that's what I have seen in my surroundings. So, for example, my parents, they divorced when I was like around 25 or so. And other couples who had been together for a very long time because they couldn't solve their differences, and it's always fine to go for divorce, but then you see them with a new partner and you see like they are almost the same issues again, they have gone for the same type, and it's a bit funny to see from the outside, but I think it's also tragic if you're not aware of this. And so I always feel it's good to know about it and also to have these realistic expectations of what are you able to solve, because we are not one person, right? We are one couple, but we are two individuals. And that means there will be a rest of our differences we will not be able to solve. And then it comes down to the acceptance of agreeing to disagree or whatever, and to find some good way in between.
Yeah.
I was actually quite curious to know as to how uh, you both as individuals from two different cultures upbringing, now that you're raising your daughter Tara, how does I was very curious that how does the Indian and the German culture interplay and the mix come into the everyday raising? Because I hear Venky, you're talking to Tara in Hindi.
yeah.
So, how does Ariane also talk to her in German? Is she picking both the languages together?
I think I have a bit of an advantage here because we are raising her in Germany, which means the most exposure she has is from German. So in the kindergarten, they will talk to her in German and so on, which means she's also her strong language. The language she's usually responding in is German. But I'm super happy because I grew up like this, only hearing German. My whole relatives, nobody speaks English and so on. So I'm super happy that she grows up in a household with three languages because we speak English to each other. He speaks Hindi to her. And then also the grandparents, they speak a bit of Tamil. So actually 4 languages. I'm super happy about it because I mean I know what kind of hard work it is to train a language and to really get this into your head when you're older. And for me, it's a lot of really, really nice and cool add-ons to the German setup. So celebrating the holidays, yeah, having Diwali celebrations, for example, or maybe Holi, and just adding the spiritual side. So when your mom and dad are here, like to show them, to show her like how the puja is done or something like that, some rituals. That is for me like some extra cool stuff I can add into her experiences, into her exposure. And the other things are very easy for me because she's raised in a German setup, which I also know very well, right? So, but I hope that we are giving her an exposure from both worlds, but clearly she will get more from the German side because even if we go on long holidays to India, it's not the same like living there. But for me, it's very important that she can connect back to the roots, and that could happen, for example, via the language.
Indeed, indeed. And I think, so for me, it's the other way around. Having lived here for the last decade or so, right now, you see how not every German, but a lot of Germans are like raising the kids. And these are the smaller things. I think like India has a different set of things that we bring for our kids, right? In terms of that warmth, the way, for example, the respect for the elders and how you are, uh, like those become baked into it, right? Apart from all the cultural dimensions, a lot of the imagination that most of the Indian kids would have, so on and so forth. What I like about, for example, the German cultural aspects with kids is the the kids, even from 2 years or so, once they start talking or expressing themselves, are treated as a individual adult. And this is something that, at least when I was growing up, I never felt. And I think for a lot of Indian kids, they are always talked down to. And even now, if I sometimes see my Indian uh, relatives, a lot of us do not know, or a lot of people actually do not know how to talk to kids. So they will do, blah, blah, even if the kid is talking. And then you realize if you actually have a conversation with the kid like the way we are having, they will actually respond back. And for me, that grace and patience to engage with Tara in that way is something that I always thought would be how I wanted to be treated, but I never had the tools to do it. And being in Germany, that helps. So when I am sitting with her, I will ask her, so what does she want to eat, this or that? Or then saying, okay, do you want to do this now? And then she will like, no, first we'll go here, and then we'll do this, etc. And you can see her completing full thoughts and sentences. That's one. The second thing is the I think what I'm noticing is for a lot of people from my generation in India, the connection between how we feel versus what we talk about is not very clearly taught as a kid. So, so for example, Tara would break something, or she would like, I feel very sad. And in India, immediately as a parent, you are like, oh no, kids cannot be sad. Kids have to be always innocent and happy, and so and like let's distract with some iPad video to blah blah blah, or give some million chocolates. But in Germany, they actually teach the kid that emotion. They're like, I know you're feeling angry, breathe through this, and it's okay, but you don't say mean things or you don't hit someone. Or I understand that you're feeling sad because if I had a dear friend who is leaving for another school, I will also feel sad. So what you're doing is you're still giving them that comfort and then later on some fun things to do, but you're validating that emotion, which means automatically when they grow up, and that's what I see with Ariane as well, the time from when she actually feels an emotion to acknowledging it is very short. So if she feels sad, she'll just feel, I feel very sad today. And that time when she's acknowledging it is way faster than for me. So for me, I will not know when an incident has affected me emotionally in a certain way. And then I really need to think through and really try to push all the other conditioning away to actually acknowledge that this is how I feel. And I feel the German setup, and more importantly, I think also the way Ariane speaks with her, teaches me that's what I want to do.
I just wanted to say that as a disclaimer because, of course, we can never speak like for the Indian way to raise a child,
or
the
full
German way, but like what we experience in our German side of the family and our Indian side of the family.
Yeah,
right?
indeed.
A very interesting part is still yet to come. So Tara is 3 now. And we realized that now with the education. Yeah, in India, you start your school at 5. In Germany, you started at 6. And at 6, you go to first grade and you learn how to write letters and you learn the numbers and so on. And when I told him, he's like, "What? So late? You know, like, what are you doing until then?" And here it's very important. They always say, "Oh, the children should have a child. They should have enough time to play and also to experiment." So in kindergarten, they will do a lot of these trips to a farm and see the animals, yeah, or they will go to a museum or whatever to experience the world around them, because the notion is from 6 onwards, anyway, in the next 12 years, you're sitting in a classroom and you have to do that very structured learning. But I think that these will be very interesting discussions, because I can already see now, like my in-laws, like trying to teach her letters and stuff, you know, and she's responding well to it. But then I'm like, I don't know, you know, how this will fit together with the whole school timetable.
For example, my niece, so my sister and brother-in-law, they live in California, and my niece will turn 10. But already, I think when she was 7 or 8, she's a voracious reader. So she finishes, let's say, 300 pages books in a day or two. And when the Germans, yeah, when German side hears it, they're like, "What the hell?" Because I hear it would be a completely different dimension of it. Like, so I think already you yourself were like a voracious reader from childhood too.
Yes, yes.
But was it this early as well?
No, I don't think so.
My God, can you believe we've been talking for 1.5 hours already?
Time flies.
Divers.
Wow. And it seems that our discussion can just keep going on.
Yeah.
And hence I invite you to season 2. I would love to take this forward, but we are pressed with time. So as a conclusion, if you had to give a thought to hopeless romantics or confused idiots or just people looking to find love on your idea of love and longevity in love, what would you say?
Are you looking at me as if you want me to summarize? You give it your shot.
You're better like advice giver, I would say. I think what you said about your friends in a parallel universe, you could fall in love with them. I think that was a very interesting point in terms of, don't look for an image of a person, an image of a relationship, but really think about what you value in a friend. And then you can add that layer of love. That's beautiful if it is there, and it should be there for sure. But these basic qualities, the good heartedness of people, and basic qualities which you value, they should be there in a partner. And it's important to find that and to communicate about all the differences you might have.
If I can give a more, I think, structured way,
Phase 1, phase 2.
I would start with, for example, finding someone. It's important to have, I think, at least multiple experiences. As in, of course, if you are lucky with the first shot, that's okay. But don't be tied to that idea of just you find one love, one person, etc., etc. So it would be, I think, in the beginning, dating, even casual dating or dating is helpful to at least more than anything else to figure out what you actually are looking for, because a lot of times that does not happen. That's the I think the first aspect of it. The second thing I think is to understand what you are as an individual, because if you are not happy as a person, you will never be happy in a relationship, because you will always project to the other person. So I think to find, let's say, your own inner core of what works for you, what does not, I think it's important. And then comes the aspect of companionship. Like, seek a companion with whom you want to experience life together. And usually it always goes with the combination of three. Like one of my friend often says, it's like a compassionate heart, like a curious mind, and a courageous spirit. Because with that, you are able to go with a lot of life challenges, but also attract adventures that you want to take with your partner.
I found it interesting that dating comes before knowing yourself.
Yeah.
you get.
First,
I think.
first the fun, then the self-discovery.
Yeah, I think as mankind, we're never gonna reach a stage where you will get to know yourself before you date someone.
Yes,
Yeah, you
yes.
will know yourself.
Unless you choose someone else with your toxicity, how would you be the first? You need the guinea pigs, right? You need the guinea pigs
Yeah.
for the experiment. Then you can make your conclusion.
True.
So my anger is a problem I need to deal with.
That turned out very quickly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And with that,
we come to the end of the show.
Wow.
This was
Thank you so much.
this was a little intro to the wonderful life that you guys are having, will have, and we hope to cover this, in the future iterations as well, as you grow, as we grow.
yeah.
Of course.
That would be fun. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for this experience. It's not often that we just sit around and reflect about these things. So that's also has been an experience for us. Yeah.
There are a lot of things that both of you shared in the previous chat and even today, at least from the previous, that just stuck to me. And today, I think after chat, I'll see what is here. So thank you for being so candid and just sharing everything.
I must also compliment you guys, because I was thinking the other day, that the fact that you guys are doing this podcast, right? Like, I think like the hustle of the podcast or the project, it might be yours, Sid, but I think what you guys have structured in a formal way through which you are able to speak with different couples is what we enjoy in sporadic, random, chance conversation with people. I remember us having some conversation like this in Munnar with one of those Canadian couples, etc. And I was like, that's so amazing. Like,
really.
people are like so smart now about getting this kind of and structuring it the way you guys did. And I can imagine a lot of people wanting to have that experience of just speaking about it. And it does not come preachy. It sounds like a conversation, and you are just listening into it.
Yeah, my research involves Coffee with Karan, Ron Jimmy Grewal,
No.
Jimmy Fallon, all of that. All the fun elements have to be inspired by this cheap thrill stuff.